Welcome to the Building Texas Show, where we find the leaders behind the businesses and organizations driving progress in Texas. In each episode, we share the stories of innovators, entrepreneurs, and leaders committed to evolving Texas into its next era. I'm your host, Justin McKenzie, your guide to help you think about how to engage in the movement and support building Texas across the entire state. Welcome to the next episode from Hondo, Texas of the Building Texas Show. I'm thrilled to be sitting down with Hondo City Manager John Naron and talking about where Hondo is today. And John's been in this role for almost 2 years now and has seen and oversaw a lot of new change and new ideas here in Hondo. But I think you have an appreciation for the heritage as well, having sat in some of these conversations with you. So John, thank you for sitting with us today and talking about Hondo.
Awesome. Glad to be here. Excited for you to be here even.
Yeah. Hondo is near and dear to my heart for a number of reasons, but I've grown up on Highway 90 and I've seen it really always be a hub of transportation, whether that's the train line going right through town, Highway 90 really facilitating so much trade from the Mexican border up into San Antonio. And then we talk a lot about your airport facility and what that has. But in your time here, what have you learned and come to appreciate about Hondo, Texas?
Awesome. That's a great question. In fact, it's something that the mayor, the council, and my staff, we talk about all the time. We're really going through a process where we're trying to figure out, what is Hondo? Mm-hmm. What exactly are we? I can tell you many of the things that we do great. I think we really focus on the children here. Yeah. And you see that when you drive down Castro and you see just, 500 cars and tons of kids running around in the baseball fields, the flag football fields, the soccer fields. I mean, it's just getting used. We have a rec center, which is odd for a city under 10,000 to have a fully functioning rec center. Our Little League, when they went to the, progressed into what would be the Little League World Series, they had a police escort out of town going to the next game. The same thing with football games and things like that. So people really care about the kids. They want to see them involved in sports. And so just looking into it and say, okay, we focus on our children and we want them to come back. Yeah. And that's where we're trying to figure out now is how do we get them back?
Creating that boomerang of talent is hard for rural America, but in Hondo, we're not far from San Antonio. Mm-hmm. We're on a major thoroughfare with US Highway 90, mm-hmm. and now it is creating that quality of life that brings people back. I've seen you talk about the fields and the investment, and it's a lot of sweat investment into these fields. It is really a community project that I've appreciated seeing come to fruition. But people forget those fields are an important piece of economic development. Mm-hmm. And where do you see that going? Because they're out by the airport, they're on this place where you're trying to grow. Mm-hmm. What creates that energy?
Yeah, so it's interesting. One of the things I wanted to do was avoid, and I'm very happy with the council's decision. They put about $400,000 into the fields. They said, okay, you've got $400,000. This is great. This sounds like a lot, but I've seen councils spend a couple million, $2-3 million on these elaborate sports complexes that you never really get your ROI back. Yeah. And I know ROI, when you're thinking public sector, you're like, well, are you supposed to use that? But it is, because it's ROI for the taxpayers. Yeah. And so we were able to put, with that $400,000, we were able to transform a complex. We in-house, we created a new baseball field. In-house, we've added lighting to 3 fields that are out there and created a new concession stand. Now, also the community is giving back into that. We had actual local contractors come out and just give some of our parks personnel ideas on, okay, this needs to be lined up this way, and this is how you do this. Help with some of the masonry work. Just the skilled tradesmen kind of transferring that, shoring up some of what my guys didn't know. Yeah. So with that being said, because the price is so high to get things done now, we were able to do it for $400K. And I believe the ROI is going to be great there. Like you said, it is in it's near the airport. We're hoping that maybe that could, maybe we could put a restaurant at the airport.
Yeah.
And, all these folks coming in and bringing their kids to our sports can eat at the airport sometimes. It may kind of all come in and play into each other. Now, also, we're getting, with our volleyball, we're having a lot of teams from Sabinal, from just in Castroville and the surrounding area come in, and that's bringing more people into our town. So we're excited about it. So we'll get some of that outside impact. They'll buy gas, they'll eat in our restaurants and things like that. And then, not to mention, we're going to have this, not only the baseball complex itself, but we're including a walking trail, we're adding trees, we're going to do some playground and maybe some pickleball and volleyball. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be a great park for the city. Well,
and parks are such a key part of quality of life in a city, and we see that up and down the I-35 corridor, and some of them. I see the bigger fields with a little bit of luxury put into it. That, as a taxpayer, I'm like, did we really need that layer? So I can appreciate that you're really creating that with what you have and what the citizens have enabled for you. But it's about what's going to bring quality of life, and it might be that there's a restaurant next door too, and so you're thinking about what's that whole one-stop experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And then in that area, you've also Hondo Rail has been transitioning to now Pinsley, I believe is the name of the company. So that's exciting because they're going to bring a lot of opportunity to that short line rail. So, as it grows, we're going to get more and more people just concentrated in this area that hopefully we'll have that target market so that we can attract some, whether it's restaurants, small business, you never know.
Hondo Rail, I'm glad you mentioned them. They have a large facility out there that most people may not know exists. Almost like a large switching yard, essentially. But the trains, you said, I think there's 20 a day that go through Hondo. That's incredible economic movement for our state. And when I look at those cars, I wonder how many people know what's on them. Like, why are there 20? Because it does become a love-hate relationship with a train through town.
Right.
How do you educate your citizens, your taxpayers, on the benefits of that rail and the importance to our overall success with rail?
Okay, that's a great question. I love the love-hate relationship. So I grew up in a town that is half the size of Hondo, but very parallel. It's a train town. It's got a large airport, just on a smaller scale. And it was so funny because in Hearn is the name of the town. When the trains connect, there's a huge boom, and most of the houses are pier and beam. They're older homes, so your whole house shakes. And I fall asleep better to the sound of trains going through the town. And now, if you come visit here and you stay at an Airbnb, or someplace that's close to the tracks, you may not feel the same way. But it just kind of lulls me to sleep. But educating just the citizens, and you are right, a lot of people, they may not know what Hondo Rail does and kind of what's going on out there, but they're a tremendous economic benefit for the city. They provide a lot of job opportunities for both young people and older. Yep. And I think our EDC is doing a good job of trying to tell the story. Yep. I see that was seen a lot. They just did an awesome kind of 1-year update on letting citizens know kind of this is our strategic plan. This is how we're planning on moving forward and what we've done this year to kind of try to accomplish our goals. And they tell that story really well. It's going to take some time to get the word out. Now, recently, Boise Cascade is a recent addition to Hondo Rail, and it's a huge facility. It's coming up. 50 employees to start, and more in the future. So I think as that happens, and more of these folks move into Hondo and work there, I think that people will start having a better idea of what an asset Hondo Rail is to the city of Hondo.
And Boise Cascade's an exciting opportunity, and I think the walls are up now. So yes. People are starting to see that develop and have an understanding of how large that facility will be. But to me, that's, again, economic growth. That is the future of where you'll have employment opportunities that don't exist today. But I so appreciate you saying that SEEN and the EDC, and really I've been in those meetings with y'all, and the level of collaboration that is happening, whether it's EDC and school district or school district and chamber, or Main Street businesses coming to council or coming to the EDC saying, hey, here's what we're doing. That community conversation and having it be transparent, having it be openly available is an incredible opportunity for everyday citizen to find that story and to be introduced to why are we doing that? Why is the baseball field so important to quality of life? On the surface, you're like, oh, I don't play baseball. But if you dig a little bit deeper, you'll find that that is wildly important to the school district, to the health and well-being of young people, developing skills, and then the camaraderie of the community, the teams, everybody out there doing it. So I appreciate that. I see a lot of collaboration in the city of Hondo.
Absolutely. That's kind of one of the things we're all focused on, from my staff to department heads to the chamber director to the EDC director. We've talked about breaking down silos. And, you know, I can honestly say when I first got here, I was like, wow, everything was just so compartmentalized. It was, you know, everyone kind of wanted to stay in their lane. And SEEN and I both started pretty close to each other, and the chamber director as well. And it's kind of one of the things we talked about was like, we've got to figure out a way. And school, you know, Rosemary, the superintendent at the school, she's a tremendous, you know, supporter of that. And, you know, we just all kind of dived right in. You know, we talk, even my police chief, you know, and working with the school as well, he's been great. We talk, we are a community, we want to be transparent, we want to have conversations. You know, I always say in the meetings I have, I like it when other department heads pop by. And even though they may, you know, just listen in, I think it's important that everybody knows what's going on, because everyone has good ideas. You never know when you're going to have an idea just kind of coming from somewhere else, and it may be a great one. And, you know, that you just, maybe you didn't think of it, and that's okay. Yeah. So just by working together, we're going to be able to just do some awesome things, and really try to go for that. Okay, we're growing. How are we going to do it? So that way we can control it a little bit, instead of just letting it come and you know, just come here and it be chaotic. And you know, 20 years from now, we're wishing we would have actually thought about it and strategically planned during this growth process.
Well, and what I hear you saying there is small intentional moves and things that you can say, yep, we're going to take this step, see where it goes, and then move from there. Instead of, I'm going to take the next 10 moves and just deal with the uprising, so to speak. Because it is hard in a town of less than 10,000. The game of telephone happens. Well, why do we do that? Oh, it's all these reasons that come up. And if your infrastructure, your public relations infrastructure isn't out ahead of that, that can be really hard. It can make your job so much harder with the headwinds. And so I appreciate that you have ambassadors like SEEN and the chamber and other community leaders, Rosemary at this Hondo ISD, out there saying, no, this is why it's all important, because you'll have had that collaborative conversation.
Right, and you know, we just partnered with a company called Zen City, who they're going to help us kind of get, not only get the story out to you know, our constituents, but also get the feedback. Yeah. This year is all about community engagement and planning. And we've got water master plan, we've got internal parks master plan, we've got wastewater treatment master plan, we've got a floodplain master plan coming, or drainage study, excuse me. And all of these are going to be put together, and we need community engagement. We need to know, what are your priorities? What do you have an issue with? What do you like? What don't you like? And we need to put all that together so that we can, in 2026, look at doing a 5-year strategic plan. And so I'm excited to see, you know, some of the feedback. We're going to do like community surveys and things like that, being specific on the questions, and then at the same time asking a few open-ended questions. Our development services are working on our 2040 Envision, and just getting some feedback on everything from zoning to, again, just, what are our infrastructure related problems that are having the most impact on the community. So it's exciting. Looking forward, I mean, we're using AI. We're looking at a couple of programs, moving forward in 2025, and then also training our department heads and using AI as much as we can, as much as feasible, just to make sure we're kind of staying ahead of the game.
Yeah.
And so far, it's been tremendous in just improving efficiency.
And those community surveys, I'm always concerned that people don't take them. Mm-hmm. And I want to encourage your citizens that it's such an important part of how you develop the master plan. Mm-hmm. And in the state of Texas, just for people to think about, cities can have a master plan, and that is really the playbook for the next however long you've planned it out. But you can learn anything and everything you want to learn about the city and what they're doing in that master plan. And they're typically done very, very well. The difference is in counties, you can't have a master plan. You can only have a strategic plan. And oftentimes the city and the county, they have to align. Right. They have to work well together, or at least be aware of each other.
They should.
Well, good correction. In the best scenario, they're working together. Because the state of Texas is going through a transition of how do cities and counties work together. And for a lot of people that have a Hondo address but may not be taking city services, right? So they're not a city citizen, they're a county citizen at that point. And that's a distinction that's hard to make for the everyday citizen that says, well, I live in Hondo and I'm looking at infrastructure. But you don't. You live in the county, and that's different. So I always want to make that separation to say, who is really representing you as a member of the, if you live in the city, well, you should know your city manager. You should know what your master plans look like and understand how you can get involved and give voice to that feedback and not be a keyboard warrior after the fact.
Right.
Get involved early, and you can really influence a project at the right level. But a lot of the work you see implemented today might have happened a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. And so you have to be aware of where are we in the cycle? Where is your project in the master plan? And how do you get involved early?
Yeah, absolutely. And, just creating an understanding that it takes time.
Yeah.
And one of I guess a proverb saying that stuck with me is a society becomes great when old men plant trees in whose shade they will never sit.
Yeah.
And I think, in fact, Scene brought that saying to me, and I was like, man, that is so true. And I look at the trees that we're planting all over right now and just thinking, it's going to take, I'm impatient for them to grow. I'm like, man, I can't wait to see this place grow. And we've got to let citizens understand that, everything we do, I mean, it takes time, it takes dollars. But, these plans that we're making now, you may be talking about something that you won't see, until you're a grandpa.
Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, we definitely see that with TxDOT. So, but everything they're doing right now, probably the planning for it really went on like 20 years ago, or at least the concept. And as people started thinking about growth. And, so it is difficult. And like you said, just understanding city government, county government, even, in the way infrastructure works. I mean, sometimes the railroad is a great example. Yeah. I've had people call me about the, why is the train stopped? I'm like, well, I don't know, call UP.
Yeah.
Or why is my internet out? I don't know, call AT&T.
Yeah. The jurisdiction is important to understand. If you want to be frustrated, I don't know how much the city could do about anything on the rail line, because that's a different easement. It's a different legal structure. Yes. And that's the complicated part of a role like the city manager, because it's the one-stop shop for everything.
Right.
But then you have to break out, how does this work? And then in some cities, it doesn't work together real well because of the silos. But I continue to see Hondo tearing those down and bringing people to the table and then going out together with a message.
Right, absolutely. And the good thing about a small city manager is we want you to come to us, talk to us, set up an appointment, please, but I will give you 15 to 30 minutes of my time and more if needed. I even like to, actually go out to people's homes. Like if they have an issue, like if you've got a pothole in your street that's been there for 30 years, let me come look at it. I'll meet you at your house.
Yeah.
And, we can schedule a time. And I think that's important. I think that's, in fact, that's why I enjoy small town city management, just because we have that time to deal with, citizens directly. Yeah. So, if you have an issue, feel free to call. It's not a big deal. That's what we're here for.
And give the feedback. The surveys, again, when you get those emails, you're like, yeah. But it's an important 15 minutes that does make generational change possible when you talk about road systems and future master plans, ballparks. There's a passionate group around the rodeo and the future of that. So all of those things have a voice in a master plan. And I really just want to encourage whatever city in Texas you're in, go look at the master plan.
Yeah. That way you don't hear from, STP, the same 10 people.
Yeah.
Because often that's what you get in these groups, and they participate in everything. God bless them. We need them. But we would love to hear from everybody.
It really does. And in the same, I'll take a minute and talk about voter turnout, because it disappoints me. In my hometown, I watched 7% turnout for city elections. And those aren't partied elections.
Right.
You're not red or blue or whatever you might find yourself in. Your city government exists for that city, and it is not partisan. It gets to be partisan at the county and next levels up, but at local city government, it really is about what's in the best interest of the citizen. How are we executing a master plan? How are we being responsible with utility service funding and all your revenue streams? But if you want to have a voice, show up and vote.
Yeah, and guaranteed, when you step outside your door, the local politics are going to hit you much faster than the federal.
Well, that's the disappointment for my town. It's 7% in May, but then we get to November in a federal election, and we have state records at high 90s. So much more impact at the local level on your kids, the future of education, the future of infrastructure. That's what we should be voting on first. And then everything else after is important. But if you're not voting locally, I'm really frustrated and concerned with, then you come and raise your voice.
Right.
Like, be active in the whole process. Understand how, and it is a cycle, and it's a cycle of patience more often than not.
Yeah, it's been difficult too, just with just the way things are now, getting qualified candidates who are willing to serve, because it is very difficult to be a council person now. It really is. I mean, you just put yourself, you are on blast in your community, your neighbors. I've seen council people who lose friends over small decisions that you think it's just, I'm just voting yes or no, just my opinion, and man, they take it to the grave.
Yeah.
And so it's kudos to them, those who choose to serve for the 2 or 3 years, and then and sometimes more. But it's difficult.
Absolutely agreed. And the elected official is a really hard one. But there's volunteer roles too that are planning and zoning. I serve on a board of adjustments. I mean, there's ways you can get involved that aren't yet council, but might give you a really great introduction to the process and how decisions are made. And we're all trained in those roles to the ethics of the city, which there's typically an ethics policy we adhere to. And then there's how to make legal decisions. Board of Adjustments is a unique role in city volunteerism, because you almost get to be the final say, and then if the city doesn't like what you say, they have to sue you. It's a really interesting process that I don't think people understand if they don't get involved, if they're not really rolling up their sleeves and saying, how does my community work? And if you have the availability to serve, it might be an EDC board, it might be the library, it might be the school, planning and zoning. But get involved and find a way to take your talent and give your feedback in a productive way.
Right, absolutely.
So in the year and a half, what is a project that you're really proud of? What have you seen Hondo really come around and find support for?
Okay, I mean, I just really want to say I have the best department heads in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got a great staff. I think that they have basically, broken the silos, and I think that was so important because it was there. They really took. I'm kind of a positive, upbeat guy, even without coffee in the morning, and that can be a little much for somebody. Some folks, but they really embraced that, and we've all got peps in our steps. I'm COVID really inflated the prices of everything, including contract staff, and we are transitioning away from a maintenance, a city that does maintenance, to a city that constructs.
Yeah,
and that's difficult. That's your employees really have to trust you, because it's not going to be perfect at first. I give you an example. If you start doing sidewalks and everything, maybe the first sidewalk's a little crooked a little bit, you know, and that's okay, because people are still going to be able to walk on it and it's still going to be fine. And then after 3 or 4 years, man, you're knocking them out. And it saves just a tremendous amount of money. We talked about the ball fields. I mean, that's a great example of, you can take a $2 or $3 million job, and if you use staff, maybe it's $500,000 instead. Yeah. So we're transitioning away from that. I'm proud of that. The council gave us a certificates of obligations to fund some major projects. I mean, we're doing a trunk line from the airport to the wastewater plant, which is going to allow all the waste in that particular area to be able to, it's going to allow for growth in that northwestern quadrant of the city to come down and flow down into the wastewater plant. So that was a tremendous project that we're working on. We're almost done with engineering. We're currently working on the downtown storage tank right now, which is another major project, Spats Well, really focusing on the heart of our water system. And then we're going to transition into working on the arteries, working on the pipes, because we have about 60 leaks we're fixing a month. I mean, that's ridiculous. And, but we've got to continue to address it. So that's kind of just exciting on the focus of infrastructure. I mean, we've done a lot of work on the streets, getting it to an acceptable level, so that just kind of get people to where, okay, these roads are okay, so that I can start concentrating on working on the water pipes. Yeah. Because the water infrastructure is just going to be, over the next few years, just the focus. So really excited about that.
Especially being in a drought, we talk a lot about water, and as it relates to growth, that's everybody's first thing. Oh, we can't grow, we don't have water. But then I hear you say there's 60 leaks, or every city has them, right? But with intentional focus, you reduce that, you bring water back to an efficient flow. That's a huge piece of ensuring water in the future. And then it gets you to, how much are we really using? Because I think those leaks and those small little losses really do add up and take away from the conversation in a bigger form than we realize.
Absolutely. And in fact, the Texas Water Development Board recently, they came out with just new requirements on how you calculate water loss. They're really looking at it, which is great. I know it's going to be more paperwork for some folks, but at the same time, it's necessary, so that when they're making their decisions, they can look at, okay, maybe we need to fund this city because the water loss is at X amount. And like you said, it all adds up. Yeah. And it's just over years, and there's so many systems. People can look back and say, well, how do you not know? And, I can point back to turnover, to poor record keeping, to a failure from elected officials and staff to invest in water infrastructure, just for years. And there's so many small towns, especially in the same predicament that we are. Yeah. And, I always say we gotta start somewhere. So that's what we're doing. I mean, we're really focused on it, and just lasering in on how we're going to do this. Government Abbott, I believe it was yesterday, came out and said they're investing $1 billion a year for the next 10 years in water infrastructure. So that's a tremendous investment. I'm glad that Texas, understands the need for it, and hopefully some of that will funnel down to some of the smaller cities like Hondo.
There's a lot of different ways to get water in the state of Texas. So I appreciate leaders like you that are focused on what's right for my city and how do I get involved. And again, it goes back to education of your citizens first and foremost. In my town, I can say from experience, there's a lot of people who don't understand where their water comes from.
Right.
Whether it's a well, a city system, those are very different answers on the water problem. But you can't argue efficiency, and if you've got that type of maintenance that's happening, it's all the better for all of your systems. So I applaud the effort on and the attention to that maintenance and getting it back to the roads, the water, the infrastructure is feeling like it's being renewed.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. It's infrastructure became a household term, in the last 5 years, and it's been great because now, like you said, educating citizens is just so important. But now everyone, when you say infrastructure, people know what you're talking about. So,
where do you see it going from here, from a city management role? What's on your horizon that might surprise people? What are some projects that you're doing that don't sound like Hondo traditionally?
It's kind of hard to say. We are looking at some housing developments. We've had some interest,
yeah,
and that's scary for some folks. But we're being very intentional with our planning, and will be. So that is coming on the horizon, and just the people have talked about growth here, from my understanding, from a long time.
Yeah.
And I really think we are close. Boise Cascade was, that was kind of the start, and then it's just only going to go up from here. So excited because, number one, we need the homes. We really do. We talked about the boomerang effect, trying to get kids come back.
Yeah.
I spoke to, I'm going to say, 3 different families in the last month who they were complaining because their son or daughter were moving back, and they couldn't find anywhere to live.
Yeah.
I myself, trying to rent in this town, it's been rough, and I have to live here as city manager, and it's great because I want to live here. I want to be 3 minutes away from work.
Yeah.
So, but it was a very difficult thing. So, just seeing those houses come in is going to be very different from people having those available jobs, so that people don't have to travel to San Antonio. I think that's going to be different. Mm-hmm. The next 10 years are going to be a lot of changes, and I really think for the better.
We talk about the growth dynamic, and people are scared of growth, but the alternative is dying. You're right. Growing or dying, and in city terms, that's a pretty common statement. Mm-hmm. There isn't a status quo that I've ever really heard of or would say I wanted, right? Mm-hmm. Because the way the world's shifting, the way work is modernizing, the way digital communications is coming in, it's moving so quickly that if you start to stagnate or slow down, you really do get left behind so quickly. Or you put yourself into an infrastructure, deferred management, deferred maintenance role that's going to cost not the taxpayer today, but it's going to cost the taxpayer of the future exponentially more.
Absolutely. Because
we haven't done the right thing. Mm-hmm. And my version of the right thing might be different than yours. Mm-hmm. But my hope is that the elected officials, the master plan, and all of those minds collectively are going to do the right thing for the moment now, and then into the future, where it isn't a burden on your grandkids to pay for this.
I think so. That's certainly been my message to the council, and they've really been listening. They've been giving us the funding that we need in supporting our projects. It's so important. I'll give you an example. There was the downtown storage tank is probably around, I'm going to say $200,000 or $300,000 more than if it had been taken care of when it was first noticed. Let's say maybe 7 years ago, and that's what happens. And nobody realized that it was going to happen quite that fast. COVID sometimes doubled the price of several different infrastructure related items. And so it's tremendously expensive, and it's so important that when we recognize there's an issue, we need to take care of it before it just becomes just so much more expensive for the taxpayer. So, but that's a hard pill for some people to swallow. And, I think we've made it difficult for elected officials to make those decisions because, pitchforks and torches when people talk about more taxes or raising the utility rates where they need to be to cover the maintenance for the system.
And I so wish people would, before they get to the pitchforks, take a step back and say, well, what is the cost today versus cost tomorrow? How does this impact me? And in a lot of ways, it doesn't take you long to see how it impacts you. But it is that we've got to get it done now. Because I've seen it so often, it costs you opportunity when you defer something. It will inevitably come back around. When we look at Hondo today and where work is going, Boise Cascade, I think, is the first of several that will go out to your industrial area, which is around that airport. You mentioned the airport restaurant, diner, whatever that might be, and it is my understanding from the director of the airport that there's a feasibility study happening. What is a feasibility study, and why would we do that first?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. In fact, we were sitting down just talking. The EDC had put out a RFP, just to see if we could get somebody to come in.
A request for pricing proposal.
Proposal, yeah. And just to see if we can get somebody to come in to who has experience with restaurants, and get their opinion. We had an outfit come in. I'm not going to mention the name, but they had what we thought was a successful airport restaurant, and they said they were willing to come out to Hondo, but they wanted basically our fuel sales. Yeah. And we're like, no, why would we do that? We've got a very successful. Our airport is actually a little in the black, which is uncommon. We're doing okay.
And that's direct benefit to the city, right?
Right. In that we don't have to spend general funds to cover the airport losses. And so we're really surprised to hear that. So, we were talking, we said, maybe we need to look a little more into this and take the emotion. Because, man, it sounds cool doing a restaurant out there. There was a restaurant out there before. Let's take all the emotion out of it and really look into this a little further. And so we have a gentleman who is, basically doing a study for us to determine, okay, is this the best idea? Depending on the cost, is there going to be an ROI? How much risk is involved? And also looking at other alternatives, because maybe it's not a restaurant. Maybe it's a food truck park out there. Maybe it's, who knows? We'll cross that road when we get there, when we get the report. But definitely necessary to sometimes take a step back and let a third party have a look at it.
Well, and to see all of the options, because I see some cities make the mistake of, oh, well, if that city did it, we can't do it. Or it's not our idea, we don't want it. In your case, it sounds like you went and got an expert that's seen this done in a broader region, country, whatever it might happen. But they come to you and say, well, here's a slew of options. And now your elected leaders or your citizens, depending on how you roll it out from there, get to have a voice and get to make an informed decision versus just waiting to see what happens.
Right, absolutely. Data-driven decision making is so important now, and really it was before too. But we were able to focus on it. It's kind of one of the we try to every department we've tried to look at it like it's a little business, and so we've taken a look at the true cost. We've done cost benefit analysis at each department, SWOT analysis of each department as well. We've taken that and we're doing efficiency changes. Yeah. And, with that feasibility study, we'll be able to provide data to either support the project or say, this is not a good idea, you should do this. Yeah.
Well, data-driven decision-making comes back to the point that we started, and I want to close the loop on rail. There's a lot of economic impact that is state, national level impact on these cars going through Hondo. And I see cars as in train cars, but there's a lot of automotive product. There's a lot of material product that goes through there. Really, the Highway 90 corridor is such an important corridor to our economic impact or economic outcome as a state, because it does open up northern Mexico imports. Right. Hondo Rail is doing some great things there, but how do we help people appreciate that impact in a different way, and really understanding that you're seeing the consumer product goods of the country go through your town 20 times a day? And I find a lot of pride in things like that. But I also don't sit there at the red light all the time. And I just want to encourage that is what grew Highway 90. That is what made, all the way back into the 1880s, that's what made this corridor open up the way it did. And Hondo very much lives in the world of planes, trains, and automobiles,
Right.
all creating economic benefit. But they all compete with each other at some force.
Right, right.
And you get to be the conductor sometimes, so to say. So for the city citizen, rail's important.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I mean, the only way we can educate our citizens on that, again, sometimes we focus on the annoyances, you know, like just being at the red light or hearing, you know, the loud blasts from the train when we're eating on the 18th Street.
Which is there for safety.
Yeah, is there for safety,
Yeah.
and they can't help it. And to me, you know, you just get used to it, you know, and it's okay. And you know, it's important. It's something. It's a necessary, you know, element of life. Like you said, I mean, we've got all the you know, everything flowing through.
Yeah, but that's also why Boise Cascade, I'm sure it helped to make the decision to be here. It will influence other companies to say, hey, a rail yard and an airport, sign me up. Because those are decisions that site selectors, business people around the country are looking for where to put my business. And they're not emotional. They are making data-driven decisions all day long. And I think Hondo, through your leadership and many others, is really positioning itself to say, here's why Hondo.
Yes, sir.
And make that on a data-driven sales pitch.
Yes, sir.
And
absolutely.
What a gift for the citizens that don't have to do that all the time, but they're going to see the benefit of a place to work in the future, long-term tax revenue growth, which can balance out property taxes.
Yeah.
All of these systems are a balance, counterbalance decision that with data become easier to make.
Yeah, it's you know, I don't know how many people played SimCity back in the day here, but you know, you've got to each little part of it, you know, and it's just like that. You know, if you don't spend enough, you know, in parks, if you don't spend enough in streets and public safety, your city catches on fire. It's you know, it becomes pitchforks and torches. So you really got to balance.
Or if you become a single issue voter, it's hard to find balance when you're a single issue voter. And because your decision might have an outweighed impact on another decision that you wouldn't be aware of unless you're really looking at the whole.
Very true.
Well, your story is an interesting one, and I want to give everybody an opportunity to get to know you. And one, thank you for your service. You served in the Navy for a long time. And how did that influence your professional career and really helping you get to the city leadership role?
Yeah, it's I came into city government. It's a little different path than most, but you know, I got out of the Navy in 2009. Going from small town Texas kid and going and seeing the world, I mean, that really helped. I've been all over South America, and then I met my wife actually in Dubai.
Okay.
And she's Filipina. She was working for Emirates Airlines there. And, you know, we met and brought her back to her in Texas, which she was a little shocked, a little culture shocked. But, you know, from there, I finished up school, and I was in the oil field, and my city had a lot of crazy stuff going on. We lost several top levels in leadership, and I had my degree was in business management, so I went and stood up at a council meeting and said, hey, you know, guys, I'd like you to consider me. And they ended up saying yes. And, you know, it was from there I fell in love with local government.
Yeah.
But it's been exciting. I love it. I mean, like I said, I got out for, you know, I spent about 5.5 years in Hearn, and I consulted for about 2 years and finished up my MPA. And, you know, I told my wife, I was like, well, I'm getting back into city management. And she goes, why? And I was like, man, I miss it. I miss the people. I love that I can call another city manager and get an idea. You know, like you mentioned earlier, I can, you know, best practices in another city can become our practices.
Yeah.
And do that often. And, you know, it's just you know, it's not ultra competitive. In fact, we're all trying to boost each other up. And, I love that about this. And you really get to see, if you go out and pave a street, you get to see the smiles on people's faces. Seeing kids playing at the park that you help bring about, and then seeing the growth, just in just your staff, seeing them grow and become, better leaders, and helping them move forward in their careers. It's a wonderful, wonderful job, really.
And I've heard you refer to it as the greater good. And it really is. How do you get out and accomplish the task for the greater good of everyone? And that's a hard thing to capture. It takes some thick skin at times.
Yeah.
But it's made easier when they're giving you feedback. And want to encourage citizens of Hondo, but really citizens of any city, to reach out and get to know their city manager, understand how they're making decisions, what does the master plan look like, and where can you get involved early, so that when a decision's made now and implemented 5 years from now, it's not pitchforks
and torches.
It is, yeah, we knew this was coming, and here's why. And when you can have those ambassadors that were involved early, I think and I hope it becomes a more seamless implementation, and it really does impact the greater good for everybody involved.
Absolutely.
Well, John, thank you so much for the opportunity to come down and feature Hondo in the way that we are, and get to know some incredible leaders that are all pouring into the community in different ways. And then the long-term economic impact of what you're doing here is going to be great for Hondo, Medina County, the Highway 90 corridor. So I appreciate that you're here, that you're in this role, and thank you for the way that you're building Texas.
Awesome. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you for watching the Building Texas show. Be sure to follow us across all social media platforms and let us know what you liked.